Yes, it's absolutely true. I know you clicked on this video because you saw that I won over $50,000 in just 2 days. Commerce Casino in California just booted up their very own live stream, and I decided to fly out to participate in their 25, 50, 100 game. The buy-in's not for the faint of heart, as I brought $15,000 with me in hopes to spin it up big. What's also not for the faint of heart is pocket kings on the second hand of the night. There's an open to 125 from Drew in the +1 position. I 3-bet him to $350. Nick on the dealer button with the mystery hand 4-bets to $1,000, and the action folds back around to me. We're playing pretty deep here. He started with $1,000, so around 200 big blinds. 5 bets are usually pretty strong, so I decide just to call out of position here. We're going heads up to a flop, which comes king, queen, 8, bang, we flop top set. Not gonna be donking out into Nick. He's usually gonna have kings, queens, ace, king, king, queen, so I check it over to him, and sure enough, he goes for a bet into the 2.2K pot. Comes a nice sizable bet of $1,000. I could consider check raising here, but what would I really be doing it with other than a set or 2 pair? So I decide just to put in the call, and the turn comes a 6 of diamonds. If he had any bluffs on the flop like ace jack of diamonds, ace 10 of diamonds, they now pick up the nut flush draw. So when I check it over to Nick, he goes for a 4K bet, and all I'm thinking about is Vegas and the Mirage. I have the nuts at this point. I want to get it all in. There's a lot of draws out there, some heart draws, flush draws, straight draws. I rip it all in, and we get snap called by 7-5 of hearts.
All in, snap call.
So though he does have a heart draw, not exactly the hand I was expecting to be up against when he 4-bets from the button pre-flop. Usually when we have kings, we're going to be so far ahead of the competition when they call, but you can see that Nick is going to win this about 28% of the time. We're going to need to fade a bunch of river cards, but the 5 of diamonds is not one. A 20K pot being shipped over my way. Hand number 2 of the night. And look at that, we are getting the full double up, top set of kings versus 7-5 of hearts. Let's go. The rest of the hands went pretty smoothly here on day 1. I'll cover a few of the more interesting ones very briefly. I open pocket 9s, get 3 callers. The flop is monotone, it checks through, and then I go for a delayed c-bet on the turn, and we take it down. This next one, we 3-bet Tim with pocket kings from the hijack. He calls, I c-bet the flop, and we get the fold once again. In hand 66, we open ace jack of hearts from under the gun and get 2 callers. Flop ourselves top pair and decide to play it tricky. We call a flop bet, and the turn and river check through. We take down an $825 profit in that one. The next one's pretty fun. Nick opens in the +1 with jacks. Dr. H calls with 5s, and I look down at the very same hand. Pocket jacks, I come in for a 3-bet, and both players call. On a 9-10 4 board with 2 hearts, I decide to go for a bet, and we don't lose any customers. The turn checks through, and the river does as well. I think if I bet there, I probably get some folds, but pocket jacks is a suspect hand, and we're going to chop up Dr. H's money with our buddy Nick. We then make top pair with queen 10 offsuit from the cutoff. We end up calling a bluff from Dr. H on the river and take down a nice 2.6K pot. Like I said, the session is going pretty smoothly, and picking up the bullets is definitely a testament to that. I'm in the big blind. There is a raise and a call ahead of me. I make it $1,100. Off to a flop we go, which comes king 8-6. I go for a c-bet, and we're going to take down all of that money. I crack a smile there because, yeah, we won $12,500 in profit on day 1, but that was just the beginning because, as you know, I come back the very next night for double the stakes. It's $50, $100, $200 now with a $20,000 buy-in, and this is where things really start to heat up. The lineup is completely different, and you'll notice that the legend Phil Locke is in the house. He's on my half of the table. We chop it up and talk about a bunch of different things. Told him a story how I used to come to the Commerce to watch him and Barry Greenstein play high stakes, and then I go walk over to the 1-2 game, lose $80, and then drive home. I would do that about once a week when I was living in California, so pretty cool to be playing at the same table as the Unabomber. He signed my hat for me, which was a super cool experience. I raised it up to $500 from the hijack, and Phil Locke is going to put in the call. Turbo does as well. We flop ourselves an open-ended straight draw on a queen 10 4 board with 2 spades.
Ooh, this is an action one.
In between 2 opponents, I usually start with a check. Action checks over to Locke, who decides to go for a $600 bet, which picks up the likes of Turbo. Now, when I check on the flop, I'm also going to have sets like queens and 10s, queen 10 suited. Even though I have a bluff here with Jack King offsuit, I'm going to have those very strong hands, so I decided to go large here for 2,200. Could even size up a little bit larger. We are picking up one customer. It's Phil Locke. He puts in the call and we are off to the turn. So playing against one of my idols in hand number 6, jumping right off into the deep end here. We see the 3 of clubs on the turn. Got to continue telling the story of a very strong hand. So I go for a 2/3 pot size bet of $4,000. If Locke jams here, it puts us in a tough spot. Having the jack of spades is important to note, but luckily he just puts in the call. I really would have preferred a fold, but the river card bails us out on the 9 of diamonds. Bang, we river the nuts.
That's a lot. How many videos?
300K.
Alexander Wolfgang.
No. That's just for the dick.
If the river came a brick, I was probably ripping it all in, so that means when I have the nuts, also have to be balanced and rip it in as well. You can see that Locke immediately counts out his chips and sees that he has around 11.5K to call, a little bit less than size of the pot of 14.7. After a little bit of time, he does in fact put in the call. The pot has ballooned up to 37.6K, and he had ace queen of spades. Look at that hand, top with the nut flush draw. Probably could have ripped the turn and I would have been in a gross spot. But lucky for me, he didn't. I see the gin card on the river, and hand number 6 is definitely one I'll remember for the rest of my life. In this game, the $200 straddle was on for like 90% of the time, but for some reason in this hand, it was not on. So I opened it up to $300 with pocket 9s. We're gonna get a few calls here. Barry completing from the big blind. He's gonna be the main villain in this hand, and the board comes 9-8 deuce with 2 clubs. Now the action checks over to me, and usually multi-way you want to start with a check. However, with a lot of draws out there like Jack 10, 7-6, the club draws, I decide to go for a bet. It's 1.2K in the middle. I'd like to see a sizing of 600 to 800, but instead I go small for $400. It kind of makes the opponents indifferent to this sizing, so we pick up 2 customers, Turbo and Barry, and the turn card comes the ace of hearts. When the action checks over to me, I love that card because now all the ace high club draws have made top pair. Maybe Barry could have a hand like ace 5 of clubs. Who knows what Turbo has? Hopefully he has 9-8 for the case 9 on the flop. But yeah, when the action checks over to me, I go large here now for $1,800. We lose Turbo. He had 8-7 offsuit, so he lost a bit of steam there on the turn. But Barry puts in the call. I love to see that. Basically have the best hand here. There's no way Barry just completes in the big blind with pocket aces. So off to the river we go, which comes the 4 of hearts. Not exactly the best card because it brings in the obvious backdoor heart draw. I don't think Barry's gonna have 3-5 suited here. So yeah, when he leads out into me, definitely some alarm bells going off in my head. 3.6K into that pot of $6,000 makes a nearly 10K pot, and the decision's on me. Now what would he be leading here with? Well, he could have hands on the flop such as Jack 10 of hearts, maybe 7-6 of hearts. Those would be the most obvious, and then King 10 of hearts makes some sense. Other than that, there's not too many heart draws. So what else is he betting out here with? He could have an ace, maybe he has a set of 8s, or somehow pocket 4s that have arrived on the river. Either way, I'm not just gonna call. I wanna get more money in here. I think it'd be a mistake to just call.
Oh, and he goes for the raise. Wolfgang playing above the rim 2 days in a row.
When I have a hand as strong as pocket 9s, and Barry is representing a very, very small heart flush range. So I make it $9,000 to go. I like my large sizing here. And as you can see, Barry has ace king offsuit, so love the raise from old Wolfgang here. Puts him in a tough spot, and now we are praying for a call. After a little bit of thinking, Barry makes the right decision for me and puts in the call. A 24K pot being shipped over my way. A set of 9s on the flop is gonna win us this massive one. We play a nearly 40K pot in hand number 6, and hand number 22 delivers with a $24,000 gem. Our heater continues in hand number 23, the very next hand. We see Lynn opens it up under the gun to $300. There are 2 calls over to myself with the ladies. Pocket queens from the big blind. This is gonna look like a squeeze, and I am blessed enough to have the 3rd best hand ever created, and I bump it up to $2.1 thousand. As you can see, it's gonna get some people to fold, but also people like Turbo on the button may not believe that I am picking up all of these premiums, and he decides to come in for a 4-bet now to $7.5 thousand, picking up that I might be squeezing a little bit light here. Unfortunately for him, I have the goods, which means I'm not folding. Am I just calling here and letting him blast off in position? No, we are going to jam it all in and just take down the pot if he has a bad hand. If he wants to flip with a hand like ace king or something random like that, so be it. But there's a lot of money out there, and I'm just going to clean up the equity here, jam it all in with the third best hand, and we can see we get the snap fold right away. King 9 of hearts, he was messing around, I wasn't. Maybe I call and he blasts off in position, but if he makes a flush or flops a pair of kings, we're in tough shape there, so I can't complain about taking down a $10,000 pot. We take a 20 hand break and pick it up here in hand number 48. This might be the second most interesting hand of the night. I look down at king 3 of diamonds, so you know something weird's about to happen. There's a raise to 200 from lock, and everyone and their mother puts in the call. The flop comes good for us. Queen 6, deuce, bang, we flop a flush. Lock bets out for $400. There's a call and then a raise from turbo to $2,000, and the action's back over to me. Pause this video real quick and let me know down in the comments, what the heck do you do with the king high flush on a queen 6 deuce board, all diamonds? There's a bet, a call, a raise, and you're out of position the rest of the way. Raising seems to make sense, right? If you have a good hand, you want to put more money in the middle. However, a raise pretty much just means I have a flush, and that's about it. I would never be raising here with a hand like pocket deuces or sixes, I don't think, because someone could easily have a flush and then just jam on me and I'm gross and have to commit, hoping to pair the board. So for that logic, I decide just to put in the call. Don't get me wrong, a $2,000 call here from me out of the small blind is super strong. You can see Lock's face, he's kind of a little bit confused. There's a raise, there's a call, who knows what he has. Throws a time extension chip in there and then eventually decides to call. Tan's gonna call as well, so that's super interesting. We're off to the turn and a 9.2k pot, and you know what I don't wanna see? A board pairing card, and sure enough, if we get a good card, the 9 of clubs peels off, and of course I have to start with a check. If I did raise the flop, I'd be betting out on this turn, but in flow, I'm hoping someone bets out, and then I could raise now, because of course I'm putting one of these opponents on a set like sixes or deuces when 3 people put in $2,000 on that board. So yeah, definitely hoping someone puts in a bet. We get really bad news when the action checks over to turbo and he checks behind. Gonna have to hope for a non-board pairing river, and we get the good news once again. The 4 of spades peels off. Now we have to go for a bet. There's 9.2k in the middle, and I decide to go large here for $7.5 thousand. My logic is I think I would be raising the flop with a lot of small flushes, so when I don't do that, maybe Lock 10 or Turbo will think that I don't have a flush. They have a set, they have pretty much the second best hand, and can put in the call. Let's turn over the hands one by one as their action is on them. Phil Lock has arrived on the river with pocket sixes. He has flopped a set, didn't put any more money in on the flop after that 2k raise. He probably could have raised there, and then checks the turn, makes some sense. Is he gonna call now? I think it'd be pretty hard for him to fold a set on this board, but that's why he's a legend. He pushes his cards to the dealer. That is not good news for us. Now let's look at Tan's hand. He has a set as well, pocket deuces. So let's get this straight. I flopped a flush, Lock flopped a set of sixes, and Tan with bottom set on the flop. Surely he has to put more money in the middle, right? Wrong. After the longest tank that we've seen in the night so far, Tan decides to make a hero fold as well and folds pocket deuces. What a disaster for me. Missing out on like 15k worth of value right there. And we go off to Turbo now. He can be a hero, right? With top pair with a good kicker. That's a weaker hand. I don't blame him for snap folding in this spot. And later on in the session, I tell everyone I had the flush and they go crazy. Everyone made a great fold. We did some math. If I raise the flop there and bet the turn and jam the river, even if Lock or Tan only calls the flop raise and the turn bet, I missed out on $28,000 worth of value. I'm not the type of guy to comment farm and try to get you guys to leave one down below, but this hand I'm really curious. You guys raise that flop, or are you just calling? Are you donking in on the turn? Are you betting smaller on the river? Are you checking the river? This hand is above my pay grade. I've been thinking about it for the last few days since I played this session. I now need your guys' help. What was I supposed to do? We then pick up pocket queens from the hijack. I make it $600 to go and get 1, 2, 3, 4 callers, going 5 ways to the flop here on an ace-ace king board. Not exactly what we wanted to see. The action checks to me, I'm either way ahead or way behind. I check and the turn comes the 8 of diamonds. Action checks through once again and the 7 of clubs peels off on the river. Am I gonna go for some thin value? Absolutely not. Action checks through, but a $3,000 pot, not too shabby coming over my way. I referenced earlier that Phil Lock signed my hat. Here's a little bit of that B-roll as it happened in real time. Speaking of Phil Lock, let's play one more hand versus him in hand number 87. I open the dealer button with pocket deuces and he looks down at pocket kings from the big blind. He decides to 3-bet me. I don't blame him. It's $1,800. Maybe could have gone a little bit larger, but I'm getting a great price here to set mine. Maybe an ace comes out there. I can take it away if I want to get creative. And sure enough, I put in the call. Off to a flop we go, which comes ace 10-10 with 2 spades. Well, that's kind of a tricky board for a lot of Phil's hands, like jacks, 10s, queens, kings. All of that stuff is obviously not going to like seeing 2 10s out there. Also not going to like seeing an ace. So when he bets out for $2,000, I'm using all of my time here thinking about what my options are. Obviously, in the long run, folding is probably the better move, but we're on a live stream. I'm playing against legend Phil Lock, and I have pocket deuces. I look over at his stack. He has around 5.8K behind. If he doesn't have an ace, it's gonna be hard to call. He shouldn't have too many of the 10s when he 3-bets me out of the big blind. Meanwhile, I'm gonna have all of them. I'm gonna have 10-9, 10-jack, ace-10, all of that good stuff. So I decide to rip it all in here.
Wolfgang. This one's going on the vlog.
I do have a pair.
I'm in one of the biggest games I've ever played in my life. I have $60,000 in my stack and all of that's in the middle, although technically it's only for around 7.8K to call. I've put Phil Lock in a tough spot. He has pocket kings. I wouldn't blame him for folding. He says he doesn't beat very much, maybe king jack of spades. I don't have that hand, sir. He folds. I turn over pocket deuces and Lynn asked me who my poker coach is. Of course, I got to give a shout out to Alvin. His links are down below. If you guys want to get better like he's made me, definitely hit him up. Tell him Wolfgang sent you. That's a GG moment. And what a night that was. I bought in for $20,000, double up the very first orbit, and then cruise to a profit of $40,325. The biggest win of my life so far. Add that to my $12,500 win the day prior, which brings the 2-day total to $52,825. It's humbling to say a number as high as that, and it really puts into perspective how far I've come. A week ago, I became an owner at the Fort Card Room in Texas, and now I posted the biggest win of my life. Thanks for watching, you guys. Make sure you hit the like button, subscribe for the next one, and click on the screen right now to watch one of my previous videos. Peace!